say something when you come in about the music. I forgot to do that last week. Like tag him or something.
Oh, okay.
Johnny VT, right?
Huh?
Young VT, right?
Yes. But I don't think that's what it is on.
I think it is. It's on Instagram.
I think it's DTN on.
Just run with it. It's her son.
Hey everyone, welcome to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. You guys, I am so excited. We have with us tonight Yasmine Minnifield, and she does a host of things. So I'm just going to read what she wrote, the first part, and we'll get into all the other. She sent me a lot of things, but I want her to tell her personal journey herself, like her own words. But she is a medicine woman. She is a certified holistic doula, a licensed massage therapist, a health coach, and a full-time mom of 3 children. And I just don't know how you do it. Good Lord, okay. Her degree is in psychology. She has a holistic expertise on birth work and the knowledge and art and science of Tantra. She elevates women in the tantric arts of surrender and releasing trauma, and to create a rebirth experience. So, and by the way, tonight's music that you hear, like through breaks, background, all that is by DTN Vaughn. So you can find him on Instagram. All right, Yasmine, tell everyone about yourself and then your story, and then we'll have a conversation.
All right, sounds beautiful. I got started as a holistic health practitioner in 2011. I trained with a naturopath. His name is Dr. Laila Africa. And from there, I went on to become really interested in birth in 2014. Trained with the community doula program, and it really sparked for me. It was like, oh, I could do this for free. This is my soul work. And I kept meeting what I call my soulmate clients, women that I just vibed with and connected with on this deep level, from heart to heart and soul to soul. That yes, I was there for them to birth their children. I was called into their birth space to, support them, to get ready, to deliver, to help them afterwards. But I found quickly that the deeper work was them rebirthing themselves. Yes, as mothers, but also outside of motherhood, who they wanted to be as women, what their visions were for their legacies. That's what I was really there to hold space for. Because when you're having a child, most people are concerned about the baby, but who's there to hold space for you as you shift and you morph and you transmute your experience of birth into more power and clarity? And I found that it is an initiation process that in indigenous cultures was revered, but in modern times it's overlooked as such. And so I feel it's my job in a more shamanic capacity to help them journey through the darker spaces of themselves, through the potential grief that is activated in their labor experience. I find that they end up processing a lot of ancestral grief, especially us that are from the diaspora, but also personal grief, because the woman that you were when you got pregnant, you will never be that woman again.
Oh, Lord.
She has to be allowed her grieving process to be honored in it and seen and witnessed. And I saw that, okay, when I'm with you for this first 40 days, that is powerful, especially those that I meet like 4 weeks, and we get to spend this whole pregnancy together. But what happens after the 40 days? We bonded so intimately, and then I just don't get to talk to you again. That felt unnatural.
Okay.
So I was inspired to create a community. It's called Mother Goddess Matriarch, and it's where I hold space for women in the continuum of their mothering journey. So whether they're trying to get pregnant, they need help with fertility, abortion support, miscarriage support, during their pregnancy, postpartum, but then also the long-term process. I find that there are a whole bunch of birth doulas that are really ready to support people, but after the baby's like 1 year old, that's when women are struggling the most. They haven't recovered their health yet. They don't know who they are. They look in the mirror and they see a stranger. The edges may not have grown back yet.
All of the things.
Yeah, all the things. They're struggling on multiple levels. But what I've come to see is that it's like the journey of the phoenix. You get burned to ashes to be remade into a new creature. And you can take quantum leaps of growth if you have somebody who's already done it, who's taken the ashes and reformed their lives into something new. So that's my major work now, just holding that space. I still do, work in the field at births and afterwards. But my main work is in that space and the gap where most women are not tended to.
Okay. So much with that. So much with that. This might be one of those shows where we don't take a break. Sometimes that happens because there's just so much. You talked about the grief, that mourning period. And I know people often chop everything up to be in the baby blues.
Mm-hmm.
But I had some of that on top of the anxiety after. And they were like, oh, it'll go away as they get older. I'm going to tell you now, my oldest just turned 18. And that level of anxiety never subsided. Like, I was always on that high alert kind of, you never really sleep through the night.
Yeah.
A baby's sleeping, but I mean, they're like, the older they get, no, it did not seem to get better. And for the longest, I thought I was nuts.
Right.
But after a while, it seemed like, okay, this is natural, but there was no one you could really talk to about it.
Yeah.
Like, even if you talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist about it, they're not really versed in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, new moms, we'll start with new moms, because they have no idea what's about to happen.
Right.
And I'll be honest, there's something in the whole process that makes you forget what's going to happen. Because with the second one, I've seen I might have been that much more prepared, but not much. So how do you, someone has started out and they're wanting to make sure they have the support and knowing all the things. Where should they turn? What should they look for? What questions should they ask? Those kind of things.
A three-part answer comes to
Right.
mind. One is just to discuss postnatal depletion.
Okay.
On average, if you do not tend to postnatal depletion, it can last up to 10 years per child.
Ooh.
And so when we look at, what is postnatal depletion? Think about it this way. You are creating a whole human being. Back in the day, just 2-3 generations ago, our food was more nutrient dense. Our mothers and grandmothers knew how to feed a woman to prepare her for childbirth. They were fed nutrient-dense foods, lots of organ meats, fresh veggies, stews, things that had a lot of nutrients and were easy to digest. They were using herbs. We had the grandma midwives down in the South tending to you, so you didn't even know what they was giving you, but you felt good. Right. But we don't have a lot of that wisdom. Unfortunately, the chain of passing it down was broken along the way. And then our foods are just not as nutrient dense. We have to go through a lot more to get that level of deep nutrient density to prepare our bodies. Most of us are not going into pregnancy prepared anyway. So we're starting off from a depleted state. Then we have the taxing of pregnancy, the delivery, which for many of us is fairly traumatic, and stress also depletes you. Then the actual recovery process, which if you had any sort of birth trauma or a cesarean is much, much harder because now you've gone through a major surgery in addition to the depletion from pregnancy. If we layer on that breastfeeding, which is wonderful, I'm an advocate of breastfeeding, but we also have to balance our breastfeeding with the mother's nutritional deficiencies. So she's already presenting with deficiencies, and signs of that is anxiety, self-esteem issues, skin is dry, hair is falling out. We're not just talking about losing the temples, we're talking about chunks falling out in your hands.
And I had the hair loss. I had, I have one crown, and it's pregnancy related. I had no problems until I had kids. And to me, they tell you this, and you read these kind of things, but they don't emphasize it enough.
No, it's not.
And to me, it caught me off guard because I believed I was fairly healthy at the time. You know, I worked out all the time. I was in the gym. I ate healthy. You know, so I drunk because young. But for the most part, for my age, I figured I'm healthier than most of my friends. You know, I at least go to the farmer's market and get my food and that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
So you think that, and I guess all people that age think, they're invincible.
Fine. But then there's also the thought about what we think of in terms as healthy, quote unquote. This was flipped on its head for me. When I got pregnant with my second child, I was a raw foodist. I had 80% raw vegan diet. I'm thinking, oh, I'm ready to go. Pop pregnant and I'm craving eggs, salmon, flounder, lamb sausage. I didn't even know lamb sausage was a thing. But my body knew. And I found it in the DeKalb Farmers Market.
Right? So good.
Fried it up and ate that thing. But it opened my eyes. And that's when I got into the work like Western Price and, nourishing traditions to understand the role of animal fats. That we need a lot of animal fat, saturated fats, healthy fats for hormone production, which is ramped up in pregnancy. But it's also how we absorb fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K.
So we're basically taking these vitamins with no way to absorb them. Okay.
And then if your gut health is impaired, now the little bit of nutrition you were getting in, your body is ill-equipped to actually take and use. So I take women through this process of repairing the gut, doing a gut reset, teaching them what I call postpartum or traditional eating. So we do warm foods, lots of soups, bone broths, greens, cooked and slow simmered, maybe some turkey,
Right.
and a lot of vegan mothers come into my world like, I don't know. I'm like, well, are we going to stick with the dogma or heal? Because that was a question I had to ask myself. And, the other piece I wanted to bring to the table is our nervous system. Most of us are walking around here with dysregulated nervous systems. I think about it on a temperature scale. We're either too hot, too cold. Hardly anyone is just right.
Okay.
When we're too hot, that's like hyper arousal. Your thoughts are very fast. You can't think. Your head is unclear. You're just moving too fast. You don't feel grounded. You feel flighty. When you're too cold, you're very detached. Like this can get into the realm of depression and just not, you're connected to people, but you can't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel detached. It's like also compared to the seasons.
Okay.
So if we're in hot summer, that's like too hot nervous system. It's dysregulated. It's too hot. The middle of winter, too cold nervous system. It's dysregulated. I like to think of postpartum as the winter time of the body.
Okay.
I don't think about it as a finite time period. It is a physiological state of the body, for the woman's body, in which we are very cold, including our nervous systems.
Okay.
So the way to regulate and bring us back as close as possible to just right in the middle is just like you would do in the wintertime. What do we do to get cold? When we get warm, we get cozy. We put on warm socks, extra layers. We eat warm food,
Takes a hot
warm
bath.
beverage. Exactly.
Okay.
And so I give them like a list of tools and ideas and graphics to inspire them when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling detached. Sometimes what we're thinking of as baby blues is a dysregulated nervous system. And there's also a whole bunch of herbal allies. There's plants, flower essences, homeopathic remedies that are all okay to use. They're not contraindicated during pregnancy or breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
That can also help to soothe mothers on a deep level and bring the nervous system back to that middle place.
So that was a concern of mine, like because they say, okay, it's postpartum. So then they're like, well, we can give you this medication. But if you're breastfeeding, you don't really want to do that.
Nope.
And a lot of those medications, even if you take them, make you feel even more disconnected. Like
Colder.
from everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people have a hard time with like connecting to their little ones and that type of thing. And it just seems like one of those things that just keeps going.
Spiraling.
So if left unchecked, at what point, or does a woman ever really gain that back or manage
Yes.
to replenish themselves?
I've had mothers come to me that are in their 50s, children are grown. They think everything they're going through is just perimenopausal, menopausal. I'm like, no, you're still in postpartum, mama. So most women just go from winter to winter because menopause is another wintertime state. We're supposed to swing back into spring at some point. It is possible. Will it take work? Yes. For me, after 3 children, a long-term vegan diet, dysregulated nervous system, it took 2 solid years of dedicated time and attention to being gentle to myself, creating almost like this womb space, nice and warm and comforting and safe. And I let anyone that was around me know that this is what I'm doing. And if you can't hold space for that, we just can't connect right now.
I feel like so many people that I know right now need that, including myself. Because I know, like I said, I never really felt better after having kids.
Yeah.
It was just
Many
now
women
you
never
gotta
get
do
the
it.
shift. They
Right.
never feel this internal shift, and I was blessed to have that. Oh, wait a minute. I feel different.
And I mean, you start to regain a little bit of yourself, but like now I have one who's leaving the nest. And I feel those same triggers from when I gave birth to him returning to where I'm like, so
Anxiety.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like one of those things where I'm like, okay, did I ever really heal?
Recover.
Did I ever really get through any of that? And I don't think that's something people talk about, especially, older. So of course, premenopause starts on top of that, as you were saying.
One interesting point that I want to highlight is like when we're in our childbearing years, our ovaries are very responsible for hormonal production. When we transition into perimenopause and menopause, the adrenal glands take over. And so, if we have been heavily stressed and depleted for years, our adrenal glands are not functioning optimally. That's when we have issues making the change. And so, it doesn't, if you have not made that change, I think it behooves someone to take a good 2 years and just dedicate it to healing the adrenals, regulating the nervous system, and just practicing this warmth, depth of nutrition, and really getting body work done, doing plenty of yoga, and not like even extraneous yoga, like yin style.
Okay.
Everything is very calming and to create that healing state because I see that so much when women begin to make the change. And they're not understanding why they're having a difficult time.
And when we were talking slightly right before the show started, and I was telling her how it wasn't until, and you guys saw my nephew a couple of weeks ago that was with me for 10 days because his mom had COVID, and I was frazzled. And it's not because I had never had kids before. I have 2 kids. They're alive. They're healthy. But I could not seem to do all the things. I could not get the laundry done and fix myself something to eat and make sure, and I was like, what is going on? And it took me a while to realize that when I had children, I was lucky enough to have a village. I had aunts that were retired by that time that had never had kids. And they made sure all the meals were done. They made sure all the clothes were washed. They made sure they held baby while I took a shower, a bath, I got a nap. And I didn't realize how valuable that was. But there's so many people who don't have a village like that. So to me, that's where people like you become so important.
Right.
Because you come in with no judgments, no preconceived notions, no, about anything. You can say, hey, let's do this together. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
How should someone go about finding and choosing someone to help them with this process? Because all personalities don't blend,
My way of doing it is a very intuitive, just like me, I guess. I'm a feeling person.
Okay.
And so my first recommendation is to empty your cup. If you like the Om mantra or you pray, whatever you do to connect back to whatever you feel is your source, your creator, just empty your mind first. And then from that blank slate, sit in a state of meditation and feel that person first. It's very akin to attracting your lover or your partner. You have to know it's the right fit. It's a soulmate connection. And I firmly believe that women like myself, before we incarnate here, we have soul contracts with the women that we are meant to serve. I've done this as a practitioner where I will sit down and I will meditate and I will feel into who I'm supposed to serve. So that when I feel her, she's going to feel familiar. I've already felt her.
Mhm.
And it'll just be a feeling like the same way you had about your partner. This is the right one. But then on the technical side, practical side, you want to make sure that they have a mixture of information and knowledge and background. That's why I say certified holistic doula. Because you don't just want the terminology. You don't want just a textbook understanding or even just their personal experiences. Their personal experiences in having children is not enough. They need proper training. So one of the organizations I trained with is the Matrona. So that is always a great resource to find someone that I know has gone through proper training.
Okay.
But outside of that, you want to make sure that they're there to support you and what your vision is. If they insert themselves too much, that is a red flag.
Okay. And talking about that, so we're all told to make this birthing plan.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, but rarely, does that birthing plan go exactly like you wanted.
Right.
So I got to my whole thing was as long as I have a healthy baby, we'll get through the rest. But I remember being adamant with my first child about wanting to have a natural birth. So I went in, I'm not doing anything. No medicine, no nothing. And 12 hours later, they told me that I had not dilated and contractions were coming. I could not really feel them, but they could see them spiking. But nothing was happening. And they're like, we have to give you Pitocin. All they said was, it'll bring on the contractions and help you dilate. Okay, because they're telling me if I don't do this, then they're going to have to give me a cesarean because they can't let me go past 24 hours of hospital policy.
Mm-hmm.
So now I feel sort of stuck because I only got 12 hours here now.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, fine, give me the Pitocin. But they don't really tell you what that's going to do to your body.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is the devil, y'all. It's horrible. I was in so much pain. I made it 6 hours on Pitocin with no pain relief. By the time I finally got an epidural, I had tears coming out of my eyes, and it was those where you're crying and you can't even vocalize.
Mm-hmm.
You can't talk. You can't say anything. You're just like in that much pain. And it basically came down to my aunt finally yelling at the nurses and saying, y'all give her something or else,
Right.
because she can't go like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they checked me, and I still hadn't gotten that far. I was maybe about 5 at that point. Or right before, I did make it right under the wire to get an epidural. But they don't tell you what's going to happen. And so it would have been nice having someone who could like explain to me what was happening, or if they would even go through and explain that process that, hey, if this happens, then we have to do this before you are in that state, because you're not hearing anything.
No.
And you're not understanding anything. And if anyone wants to call in with questions, our number is 678-383-4378. Again, that's 678-383-4378. What do you say about having that plan and making sure someone can speak for you, even if they don't have a doula, but making sure someone can speak for you, and like running through contingency plans and all that kind of thing?
The first thing I want to touch on is a few misconceptions about labor. There's a difference between a natural, I don't even say natural, a physiological birth and
Ready?
Hi, what up, witches? With Yasmine and Amanda. What's your question?
Hey guys, it's
Hi.
Naila. Hey Amanda.
Hey.
I have a question for Yasmine. Well, first of all, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I follow you on Facebook, and you have been very inspirational to me in the last couple of months. I'm 44 years old. I have 3 beautiful children that I birthed who are all full-fledged adults, but I promise you, I still feel like I am in postpartum depression. What do I do?
Where do you start?
Right. First, I just want to say,
Yeah, where do I start? Like, what?
yeah, my heart goes out to you, and you're not alone. I hear this a lot. First, I think it starts with just covering your bases with your body, your physical body. I know many people like to start, mind, body, soul. My approach is body first, because like they say, the issues are in the tissues.
Okay.
So I would start with hydration, just to start there first, making sure that you have cellular hydration. So you want a high quality spring water. You want to add pink salt to that water every day, drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces. From there, I would start with herbal allies, plants that are going to support your mood. There's a formula, it's called the anti-anxiety formula by Nutritional, and it has a great blend of herbs and vitamins that can support your mood and kind of get you immediate relief. The next one I would suggest is a flower essence. It's called willow, also known as forgive and forget. And flower essences are very subtle, but they're very powerful for emotional healing. And this is going to help you start to release some of the things you might still be holding on, either from those births or things before that they activated within you. Third, having community and village and support to surround you is crucial, because we tend to isolate and go into those cold places and feel like we're all alone. So I really suggest finding community. Of course, I have one, but even if that's not the one for you, make sure you're surrounded so that you have someone to talk to. I do believe in collaborative care. So if you have a counselor, the therapy that I suggest is Emdr Therapy. It's a particular type of trauma therapy, so that you can explore if there are specific triggers that are putting you into this, what I would call a dysregulated state. For me, depression is a form of nervous system dysregulation and depletion. But it's also an invitation for a lot of women, because we overfunction. We're not comfortable with just being still. And depression is one of the ultimate invitations into your internal sanctuary, going deep within yourself to meditate, to be quiet, to take baths in the dark, and really ask yourself, am I holding on to sadness? And if so, where is it coming from? Being quiet to hear that answer.
Any other questions?
I can answer that question. I know where it comes from and why it has. But I don't want to upset any family members, so I won't say. But I know why I hold on to them so tight, and why. I mean, I don't intrude. I'm not an intrusive mom, but I'm really overprotective of my children, and I know where it stems from.
So Willow is going to be crucial for you, Mama. Willow is going to help you to release and let go and surrender and find a new level of trust with yourself, with your children, whoever your higher power is. And to know that, there's going to be variables in life that you cannot control. And that's why I say that I teach the art of surrender. I think in surrendering and trusting and being vulnerable, that we're at our most powerful as women.
Yeah, because I'm a control freak. I'm not gonna lie, I am. Mm-hmm. If I can't control it, I don't want it. I don't want any parts of it.
But I can tell you,
but I know that that's a problem.
Yeah, from personal experience, the times that I have given up control willingly and soothed myself through that, I was put into a receptive mode. You cannot receive healing, blessing, new relationships, a deep level of support or care if your hands are closed. Controlling means your hands are closed. You have to open them through your surrender and allowing others to support you and to show up for you. This is going to put you in that receptive mode. And let me tell you, there are benefits to that you do not anticipate. It increases your orgasmic potential. It increases your ability to bring in prosperity and flow and abundance. So when you open your hands and you let go, you're also opening up the possibilities for more than you can imagine.
And she said something there where you were saying, like just taking that time and that space. Like, I feel like as women, we try to do it all. Like, we try to get all the things done. And like recently, I've started scheduling like a day or two where I'm just not going to do anything. And I give myself permission to just lay around and do nothing, watch television, read a book, or catch a nap or whatever. Just do nothing. And at first I felt, you have that program where you're being lazy. Like if you're not doing something, you're being lazy. And I was like, no, I need the rest. I'm tired. But even now, still when I do it, I feel like I'm constantly like, there's something I need to be doing. There's something I need to be doing. And it's hard.
It's hard
To like back off.
But it's a woman's most powerful state. Let me say a feminine oriented woman. It's our most powerful state to just be and allow. Because then it's like we allow the pieces that the universe is coalescing on our behalf to jive and come together on our behalf. Instead of feeling like we have to force it, we allow it, we attract, we magnetize. And it'll happen in such a way that you wouldn't have put together by forcing. Okay. So it's like leaving space for that magical element. But it also makes me think about cycle syncing, where most women are very out of sync with their internal rhythms. They don't know when they're ovulating, when their cycle is about to come. It's just kind of like, oh, it's here. But when you can be hyper aware of like where you're at within the cycle overall, knowing, okay, there's 4 phases here. For example, the week before your period, that's your luteal phase. I connect that to the fall season. Okay. Right before winter, your period. Okay. This is supposed to prepare us when we're in sync with our cycle for childbirth and its recovery process, as well as the macro version of that when we transition into the winter of menopause. Right. So we always matriculate through 4 seasons every cycle. And when we can master that, we master our mothering journey. But we also master manifestation through a feminine lens where, okay, when I'm ovulating, this is like the summer of my internal season. This is when things are going to really populate, just like the full moon, where you notice big things are called in. You're going to manifest. Right. Well, there's more to it than just the moon. Really, I think the internal rhythm trumps external things. Okay. So if you're not bleeding in rhythm with the moon, you pay attention to what's going on with you. And so the luteal phase, that week before our cycle, we usually have PMS and cramps. We feel like crap. Right. We do not allow ourselves to just slow down and be. But what I have noticed is the more that I allow myself to intentionally rest, it's like storing up energy and making an investment for the rest of my cycle. Okay. And so this is another way, actually, to treat depression, one of a holistic program. Okay. But the more that you pour in the nutrition and the rest, that week before your cycle, the week of, you notice the entire month goes smoother, and you can set your intentions for manifestation to leverage the power of your womb space. Okay. Mm-hmm. Whole nother approach to manifestation. Do you have any other questions or?
No, if I do, I'll call back.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anyone else has any questions, you can also call in 678-383-4378. Okay, so you were saying, I can't remember, we were talking, you were going to go into an explanation on, what were we talking about? I can't even remember now.
That's why
lost
I
it.
love phone calls because they're live, but I can't remember what we're talking about.
Right? Oh, goodness.
Girl.
I'm going to come back to this, I guess.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about, that after
You were
being
talking
there
about
and
your
giving
son.
birth. Yes,
Yeah, your
giving
son,
birth and like not having control over what is happening to you.
Oh, yes. So there's misconceptions about how labor rolls in physiological birth because it's so impacted by hospital and birth center policies.
Okay.
These policies were not designed with physiological birth in mind. They're designed to cover the behinds of the hospital staff. Yes, liability, but also for ease of the medical provider to do what they need to do from room to room. So part of how you prepare for the birth and your plan, so to speak, is to prepare yourself to always ask, is there another option?
Okay.
Do I have more time? Is this the only way it can be done? Okay, well, give me a second to think about it. I'd like to have time alone with my partner. Always allow yourself some time to breathe when they are suggesting things to you, to have a sound mind in analyzing what's being said. Because when you give yourself that extra space, especially if you have what I call the anchor of the birth present, and this could be your doula, it could be the husband or the friend or the aunt. It's whoever you feel is securing you enough to feel safe to do what you have to do without being concerned about the details of what's going on. So I really don't think it should be the job of the mother to think in that way, because we're accessing a totally different side of the brain to be able to give birth. When we give birth, it's a right brain oriented function of the body.
Okay.
It's the intuition, the feeling, the sensing side of us. But it's also, when we look at our brain waves, they're slowing down. So like right now, we're more alert. Our brain waves are kind of moving kind of fast, medium paced. But as you matriculate through labor, your brain waves slow down. It takes you to an altered state of consciousness.
Okay.
So the deeper you get towards being 10 and complete, we're going towards a delta state of mind. This is the slowest, longest wave pattern of brain waves.
Okay.
But when somebody goes to talk to you, you get disturbed, and so does your brainwave pattern. Because now they're asking you to come out of this altered state back into conscious thinking in your left brain, analytical brain.
And make a decision.
And make a decision. When you look at a mom that's in the throes of labor and she is uninterrupted, she's not even really recognizing that anyone is in the room. It was a life-changing moment for me when I read Unassisted Birth. And the author spoke about that she noticed the more people that were in the birthing room, the longer the labor time, that they were correlated.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'll be damned. When you think about how a lot of the hospital births also introduce students,
Right.
nursing staff is changed over, who's going to show up to attend you when you actually birth?
Right. A random person coming in and saying, I'm going to check you. Who are
Your
you?
vagina.
Right. Who are you? Wait.
Pineapples.
Right.
Okay.
Like, wait. Can I get a name?
Can I get a little
Can I get a sandwich?
Yes, sir. Drink of water? No, do
Before
I
you
know
go
your
wrapping your
name?
fingers up for stuff? Like
And
anything.
when I learned that vaginal checks, the only thing that a vaginal check tells you is what has happened, not what will. I was like, wait, this does not tell me how fast I'm going to get from 5 to complete. It just tells me that I've made it to 5. Some mothers can go from 5 to complete just like that. If they just relax and surrender and go into that delta wave.
But you can't do
Outer
that with
state.
everything going on.
Bright lights.
Lights, the blood pressure cuff squeezing your arm every. Yeah, it's unnerving.
Yes.
Like it really, really is.
And that's honestly why I'm a huge proponent of home birth for low risk births. Because for me, I had almost a carbon copy experience of what you described with your child was my first. I had the Pitocin with no pain relief and was just crying and shaking the railing and angry at the pain. And then having the epidural and the thing didn't even kick in until I had the child. I didn't even get the pain relief at any point.
And then they tell you there are risks with it, but again, that's one of those things they're telling you while you're in pain. And so then when you can't walk completely after, or you can't really feel your legs yet, and they want you to get up and walk around, you like
pain in that area to this day.
Right. Like
no one talks about that. How there is long-term risk of continual pain and issue and injury. I've had massage clients where I have to be delicate with that area because of the epidural years before.
So many things. And it's just like, you know, you hear about people having strokes and that kind of thing. It's like they don't tell you, you hear them, but you don't, because you can't focus on that.
Come on now. The worst pains in life are labor and tooth pain.
Like, would you ask me to sign a contract right now?
Right.
If not, this is not a good time for you to be asking me to make life and death decisions.
Nobody even does that to you with
Give me a minute.
pain. Come on now.
Give me a minute here.
Yeah.
So I really just don't think that enough is done unless you find a professional like you prior to giving birth to truly prepare someone for giving birth. You pop in for your checkup, you're gone.
Right.
Like they have 15 minutes to see you.
And I do want to say that even if you work with someone like me, it does not guarantee a birth outcome. I think that we are powerful beings. And sometimes there are things we have in our path, like suffering and pain, that we're agreeing to because of who will be on the other side of it.
Okay.
And it creates a new version of ourselves that is now equipped to walk out our soul's mission. The soul does not care if it's painful. It cares about who you're going to be on the other side of this.
What you have to heal from.
Right. And so that's why I say it's an invitation and an initiation into more power as a woman. Because you could have the best birth story, but it doesn't even guarantee what your postpartum is going to look like. Having a home birth does not preclude you from postpartum depression or anxiety or psychosis.
Right.
So I think it's more about a continual state of embracing oneself, moving in gentleness and love, and asking the question, as a creative being, why would I create this? Not from a source of blame, shame, or judgment, but who do I need to be after this? And saying, I get to define who I'm going to be after this. So if you've had a cesarean, if you've had birth trauma, if things didn't go like you planned after you had baby, it's okay. It's okay. Forgive yourself. That's why I love that willow so much, because there's a lot to forgive and forget and release as mothers.
Okay.
But outside of that, like you said, is the work itself. Like I've had clients, probably out of just shame, just fail to mention important facts about themselves.
Okay.
You know, prior surgical procedures, concerns about being able to breastfeed, sexual trauma that they have experienced. Major things that will definitely have an impact on their labor experience. So I definitely suggest, that's the other reason why you want to make sure that your practitioner is the right person. You need to be able to trust them with this sensitive information so that they can hold space for you to work through these things as much as possible before delivery or after.
Oh, we have a question. We have a question from Veronica.
Okay.
What would you suggest to a woman that has been raped?
There's a book called The Sexual Healing Journey. I found it to be absolutely powerful. I took a year reading that book slowly, and I created that womb space that we've been talking about. And I really abstained, and I took the time to heal the body too. So I did a lot of healing baths, a lot of yoga and movement, and walking out in nature to reset myself on a deep level, also using flower essences. There's one called Ultimate Fields. I think the company is called Physica Energetica, but it's a blend that helps you to release grief. And that has been one of the most powerful ones I've ever used to heal sexual trauma, and to release the grief from it. But outside of that, again, I suggest EMDR therapy to be able to reprogram your mind. What it does is that you recount the trauma to the counselor. They talk you all the way through it, through all the range of emotions. But while you're talking, you're either tapping your shoulders, you're holding a vibrating pad in both hands that alternates from side to side, or you might be watching a dot that goes from one side of the screen to the other. What this does is it reprograms the trauma to move it from the emotional center to the logical center of the brain. So you become emotionally detached, but in the days after the therapy, you reprocess the situation from a logical standpoint versus emotional. So you reach new insights and conclusions that you wouldn't have had if the trauma just stayed in the emotional center. So you want to treat body, mind, and soul. So lastly, like we were talking about, this 0 point energy, being able to empty out the cup of your mind. I personally use the Om mantra a lot for this. In the Kemetic or ancient Egyptian system, this is the energy of Amen, and there are mantras that you can use to access that energy. And of course, if anybody needs assistance, you can reach out to me as well, and I can help you or point you in the right direction of a therapist, or we can work in collaborative care to get you the help you need. But those are some steps to take on your own.
Now, we're running into that last 15 minutes. So you talked about a lot about how nutrition plays. But even for women who haven't had children, as the body ages, nutritional needs change.
Yes.
So how do you address that? Because a lot of us think, okay, well, we address the food, the nutrition and sleep needs of children. Like from infants, we know they need this, and then toddlers, and then the preschoolers. And then somewhere in that middle school age, everybody gets lumped together for their nutritional needs. And it stays that way until maybe 50. They say, oh, well, you need additional whatever now because you've reached this point.
Right.
But certainly there are changes happening, even if you haven't had a kid, along the way
Right.
for men and women.
Definitely.
How do you address that? How would you keep up with that other than just, of course, going to the doctor and making sure your vitamin levels are where they need to be or whatever, but it doesn't check for everything.
Right.
So what are some signs or things they should be looking for to say, hey, I'm going through maybe a change and I need to reassess my diet or my sleep patterns or whatever the case may be?
I like to create a baseline first. So that does include lab work, but also taking a symptoms-based assessment. You plug in your symptoms, it's going to tell me the major systems of the body that are compromised, deficiencies you may have. But outside of that, your blood pressure, your pH, and a urinalysis will tell me a whole bunch about what's going on internally. But also getting a scale, it may not be completely accurate, but getting just a baseline of what your weight, body fat percentage, BMI, your water level is in the body. And with all that information, you're going to get a good snapshot of what's going on with you. From there, now we're going to also track your sleep, your hunger, your mood, your energy levels, and your cravings. So I made a spreadsheet for my clients to do that, but on your own, just simply rating on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I in this?
Okay.
And on Sundays or once a week, you sit down and you measure where you're at. So that way we have both quantitative and qualitative measurements to see how you're doing. Then from there, like I was telling the other caller, I always start with cellular hydration. I want to make sure that you're actually hydrated. So this is introducing electrolytes, and that can be through herbal infusions where you take a larger amount of herbs and you steep it overnight and you strain it the next day. That's a natural source of electrolytes.
Okay.
Or you can use herbal tinctures to achieve that, but we also have like powders and like sprouts that you can get to
Right.
just make sure you're getting all your full spectrum of electrolytes. Once that is handled, then we look at just the food overall and what are the barriers between you receiving the nutrition you're putting into the body. So one is the water making it actually into the cell.
Okay.
So part of that, yes, is the cellular hydration. The other piece is drinking alkaline water.
Okay.
I don't think you have to do it 24/7, but a good amount of the time, getting a good high quality alkaline water will assist your cells in actually becoming hydrated. Because think about it, if your cell is not receiving the water that you're putting in, it's just stagnant like dirty water.
Okay.
But if you flush it with what I call the balanced water, it has naturally occurring electrolytes, it's alkaline, now it's actually making it into the cells, flushing out all this bad water. Then you want to do a detox, very simple detox, nothing too harsh, with gentle herbs over like a course of 7 days. And you can do green smoothies, lots of
Right.
veggies, healthy fats, sensible meals. We don't want to do anything drastic, but to decrease at least your toxic load, right?
Okay.
The next piece of that is inflammation. You want to do like anti-inflammatory herbs. This is just going to help the body with another barrier to nutrition actually being absorbed. And lastly, your gut health. So making sure that you can actually absorb that nutrition. And that applies to just anybody. Anybody can do those things and come out on the other side a healthier person.
Okay. Those are a lot of steps. So people always say, well, I need to detox, or I need to lose weight, or I need to change my eating. But it's actually a combination of all of these things that makes the difference, not just focusing on one proponent.
I'd say also just making sure that you don't have an excess of viruses, bacteria, fungi in the body. And so that can look like antiviral herbs. That can look like making sure you don't have candida, overgrowth.
Right.
Taking a nice quality probiotic, things like that. Because we don't think about the fact that, okay, these are naturally occurring pathogens that do exist in our body. Every human being has these things. But it's when they get out of whack, usually through a diet that's very heavy in sugar and starch. I used to think it was about the meat. That's why I was vegan.
Okay.
But you look, there's a lot of starchitarians,
Okay.
carbohydrate aholics.
Yeah. Right.
And this breaks down to sugar in the diet. And when that is inundated, the colon is full of the food that feeds quote unquote bad bacteria.
Okay.
I don't call them bad bacteria in my mind. They're just pathogens. They're there naturally. It's just when our diet is out of whack or our immune system is compromised that they become overgrown.
Right.
They're not your enemy. And I think the last piece I'd like to say is that there's different approaches to healing. We kind of are in this Western mindset. They call it the heroic system of healing, where we're trying to go at war against a virus, a bacteria, our weight, the symptom, whatever it is. But then there's another approach that I think especially women need to embrace. And that's the wise woman way.
Okay.
Where we look at the being as a total package and we approach it with gentleness. First, doing nothing, just allowing rest and hydration to see what the body will do if it's given a chance to heal.
Okay.
And then we systematically include more approaches that are more and more invasive. So if you do eventually need Western medicine to intervene, that's fine. It's a part of the wise woman way.
Right.
If you need that. But sometimes it's not needed and we just jump right into like step 10 when 0 could have actually handled it.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why doctors are now backpedaling on the antibiotics? Like I remember in the 90s, they give you an antibiotic for everything. You walk in with a runny nose, they want to give you an antibiotic. And now they are very hesitant about giving out antibiotics and things like that. So maybe that part is making a slow change. And I've noticed more doctors are talking more about diet and nutrition and making sure your vitamin levels are in balance and that kind of thing. Like I'm notoriously me, and I guess maybe it's a genetic thing, vitamin D levels are always low.
Right.
Always. So weekly, I take a mega dose of vitamin D, not prescription mega, but enough to keep. And I go in, and my vitamin D levels are still barely above, just where she doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, those are things you need to know. But I remember that when they used to check for that.
Yeah.
And found out that could be part of the nervous system thing going on, so there's a whole lot of steps.
It's all connected.
Right.
Right. And I think no matter if it's me or someone else, just having someone that's versed that this is what they do.
Right.
To understand all the moving parts and to help you put together your plan is just important. I have my own wellness center that I attend. The coach needs to get coached too.
Right. So we're coming towards the end. I want to make sure they get all of your information. I know David tagged a lot of it, but will you tell everybody, because we are primarily a radio station, so there are people listening that do not see and hear us, see us. They can hear us. So can you tell them where they can find you, follow you on social media, all of those things?
Wonderful. Yeah. My website is wombofpeace.com. That's WOMB of peace.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Womb of Peace ATL. And again on Facebook, Womb of Peace. Or you can find my personal page, Yasmine Minnifield.
Mm-hmm. So we have like 3 more minutes left. So is there anything that you would tell, just words of wisdom, words of advice about going forward, reaching out for help, feeling comfortable enough to ask for help, and kind of going through this journey? Because like you said, it's a whole process. So it's involving doctors, holistic, psychiatrists, therapists, counselors. It's, maybe dietitians, maybe personal trainers. Like, this is a whole village situation.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like, to give them that little push over the through the door?
I'd say for me, especially if you reach out to me via Instagram, I always offer a discovery call where you can have a free hour of coaching with me. There's no obligation. I can just hold space, whatever your primary concern is, and then we can talk about if I'm a good fit to support you. But at the end of that, we can also talk about what that village of support should look like. And I can give you help on how to piece that together. But outside of that, take a chance, like, be courageous and bold. Because again, when we're talking about those closed hands can't receive. So reaching out for support, that's an act of surrender, and it's calling in the support that you need. And you just never know, through meeting just the one right person, how they can connect you to others.
I know, y'all, that was a lot. It's a lot. It's a journey. I know it's a journey that I need to take. I know it's a journey that probably at least 90% of the people I know need to take. No, we don't talk about, especially in the African dysphoria, how much trauma is just embedded in us, and how we do things without even, and have trauma responses without even knowing why. And so there's a lot to unpack, and then you add on top of that the generational triggers and trauma, and that's before we even get to birthing or anything.
What happened in your life?
The stuff we were born with.
Yes.
Like we don't even get to the rest. And there's always been the stigma of these kind of things aren't okay. You don't ask for help. You don't lay on the couch and tell anyone our business. You don't see a shrink. You'll be fine. You got it. Like, this is pounded in.
Say that just as much as we've been able to create what preceded now, if you're that powerful to create that, you can burn all of that to the ground and create something new on the burnt field.
And
they would
this
burn
is that
fields
journey.
To plant new seeds.
And this is the beginning of that journey.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's so many people that need to take it, but just don't know where to start. So I thank you for coming on and giving us all that information to unpack. So much. And I know I will have more questions. I'm sure other people will have questions and be reaching out to you as well. Because, like I said, this is something I think everyone needs to start on a journey with, even if it's not with you, someone.
Exactly.
Everyone, thank you guys for listening. We will be back next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Of course, if you want to see what I do after hours, you can always join us on Monday at 11 p.m. for Amethyst After Hours. I'm laughing because David is shaking his head. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Say the name of your show, baby.
Say that again. Oh, you were listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6.
Appreciate it.
Say so much.
See, that's my cue to turn it off.
Sorry.
I don't know if you can do that.
Sorry, I'm still unpacking here.
I mean, the girl was dropping dimes, so I mean, it's not.